The king of cocaine, as he was fondly called, was the son of an impoverished Colombian farmer. However, by the time he turned 35, he was one of the richest men in the world. Despite his modest upbringing, Pablo Escobar became the leader of a rather deadly gang, the Medellin cartel. This cartel was responsible for about 80% of the global cocaine market. Before we get started with this video, don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell button to stay in control of our exciting updates. We are all aware that Escobar was really wealthy. However, very few persons are aware that El Patron made over $420 million every single week. Hold on, that is over $40,000 every single second. Now, if you were of the mind that Jeff Bezos' pay per hour was downright crazy, he wouldn't even have made it to the list with Escobar actively on the list. While it is almost impossible to verify Escobar's wealth, since it was entirely from drugs, there's a rough record that his net worth was well over $30 billion. Even after 2 decades since his death, Pablo Escobar is still known as he was during his peak of your success as the head of the Medellin drug cartel. His fitting in popular culture is mostly thanks to countless books, songs, and movies. We have decided to make our impact with a list of facts about the life of the flamboyant Escobar. In today's video, we will look at the top 10 facts about Pablo Escobar. Be sure you stay tuned for number 1, as this fact promises to keep your mouth open in stupefaction. Hacienda Nápoles. With Pablo's business soaring very high, it will not come as a surprise that he owned a good number of extravagant homes. However, his most notable property was the 7,000-acre estate known as Hacienda Nápoles. This property is named after Naples, Italy. It is also located between Bogotá and Medellin, so they say the property cost him a whopping $63 million to acquire. And while the estate is a massive one, it also vaunts artificial lakes, a soccer field, dinosaur statues, an airstrip, a bullfighting arena, the charred remains of a classic car collection destroyed by a rival cartel, a tennis court, and a really great-looking zoo. The front gate of the estate, of which is surpassed by the plane he used on his very first drug run to the United States, was later burgled by locals, and it is now a typical tourist attraction. King of the jungle. Ever seen a private zoo with over 200 animals? Well, you should know that Escobar's private zoo housed over 200 animals. And yes, the zoo varieties of animals that were not entirely domesticated ones. The zoo had zebras, elephants, giraffes, camels, and ostriches. Well, to be frank, most of those creatures in Pablo's zoo were smuggled into the country aboard his drug planes. After Escobar died in 1993, most of the animals were relocated to various zoos around the world. Nonetheless, 4 hippopotamuses that were left behind later multiplied, and by 2016 over 40 hippopotamuses were living in the area. Regrettably, these possibly dangerous animals have managed to damage farms and stir fear in the locals. These creatures' trouble was just too much that the authorities started castrating male hippos in a bid to control the population. He trafficked about 15 tons of cocaine into the US every day. Sure, we are aware that Pablo smuggled drugs, but what you may not know was that he trafficked as much as 15 tons into the United States every single day. According to Ione Grillo, a journalist, the Medellin cartel sneaked in most of its cocaine straight through the Florida coast. It was 900-mile transportation from the north coast of Colombia and was basically wide open, wide enough for such business to be conducted without the authorities' knowledge. Or were they aware? Anyway, the Colombians and their American workers would airdrop loads of blow out onto the sea, from where it would be hurried ashore in speedboats. Sometimes they are even flown right into the Florida mainland and allowed to crash down in the countryside. It took a whole lot of guts and stamina, 2 traits that were not lacking in Escobar. The king of cocaine factored in over $2 billion loss in profits each month, but that didn't actually matter. Escobar's tremendous wealth became challenging when he could not launder his cash as quickly as he had wanted. He then resorted to hiding piles of cash in Colombian farming fields, walls of cartel members' homes, and in dilapidated warehouses. That is some crazy act of intelligence on his part. It may have looked unreasonable at first, but after a closer look at this decision, you would agree it only takes a highly creative and intelligent mind to find a solution to saving money. However, according to the book The Accountant's Story, Inside the Violent World of the Medellin Cartel, written by Roberto Escobar, the kingpin's brother and the accountant for the cartel, Pablo was making so much that each year we would so easily write off about 10% of the money, since there was a possibility of rats eating into them where they were stored. If this is not evidence of luxurious living, then I don't think I have an idea for a new name. Now, doing the mathematics on the 10% Pablo usually writes off, that would be up to a whopping $2.1 billion. This is only a rough estimation given how much money he was reportedly making every other month. Escobar simply had so much more than he probably needed that he carelessly lost money to molds, and rodents weren't any big deal. Pablo spends over $2,500 on rubber bands each month. So while some other billionaires are spending on investments and new business ideas, Pablo had other ways of spending his money. While hiding or doing away with the excessive amount of money was one issue, the kingpin faced another, more rudimentary problem. and that apparently was neatly organizing their banknotes. According to Roberto, the Medellin cartel spends a rough estimation of about $2,500 every month on rubber bands. These rubber bands are used to hold stacks of bills together. He once started a fire with $2 million because his daughter was cold. This is really some crazy stuff. There is every chance that an average American may never get to see bulk of money of up to $2 million until they die. But here's Pablo using a $2 million bill to start up fire. Back in 2009, in an interview with Juan Pablo of the Don Juan magazine, Escobar's son, who has since transformed his name to Sebastian Marroquin, he defined what life was like fleeing with the king of cocaine. According to Marroquin's report, the family was living in a hideout in the Medellin mountainside when Manuela, Escobar's daughter, became hypothermic. Escobar's fatherly character moved him to burn over 2 million crisp dollar notes just to keep her warm. He made a deal with Colombia to be constricted, but in a luxurious prison he built and named La Catedral, or the Cathedral. It is funny to know that with all his illegal practices, Pablo also had the mind of building a prison, which he called La Catedral, back in Colombia. In 1991, Escobar was imprisoned in his self-designed prison, and this was in line with the terms of his agreement he had with the Colombian government. Pablo was allowed to select who was to be imprisoned with him and who worked hourly in prison. Yeah, that was how rich and powerful he was. He also continued to receive visitors and run his cartel business right from his luxurious prison. La Catedral was fully equipped with patios, a soccer field, and a barbecue pit, and there was also another compound he built for his family adjacent to the prison. Funny enough, the Colombian authorities were not permitted within 3 miles of his prison. So much money, and yet no bank account. At the pinnacle of its power, the Medellin cartel conquered the cocaine trade, earning an estimated $420 million per week, and making its leader one of the prosperous people in the world. With an alleged worth of $25 billion, Escobar had sufficient money to spend, and he did exactly that. His extravagant lifestyle included luxurious homes, private planes, and exaggerated parties. In the late 1980s, he purportedly offered to pay off his country's debt of $10 billion if he would be immune to any repatriation treaty. Despite his best hard work, nevertheless, even Escobar couldn't spend all the money he had, and much of it was put away in warehouses and fields. Since his source of making his money was illegal, he could not stash his money in any bank, and regrettably he lost a whole lot to rodents and mold. Robin Hood. Maybe hoping to win the backing of everyday Colombians, Escobar became known for his benevolent efforts, which led to the nickname Robin Hood. He built housing for the poor, stadiums, hospitals, stadiums, and even his private prison. He also funded local soccer teams. Pablo's popularity with many Colombians was confirmed when he was elected to a substitute seat in the country's Congress in 1982. Regrettably, 2 years later, he was compelled to resign after a campaign that exposed his criminal activities. The justice minister who led the struggles was murdered in the fight. The king is muerto. After his escape, the Colombian government, supposedly helped by rival drug traffickers and U.S. officials, started a massive manhunt. Well, on December 2, 1993, Pablo threw a large party to celebrate his 44th birthday. No doubt he must have been enjoying marijuana, wine, and cake. However, the next day, his hideout in Medellin was revealed. While Colombian forces took the entire building by storm, Pablo and a bodyguard succeeded in getting to the roof. A chase and gunfight arose, and Escobar was gravely shot at the end. So, there you have it, guys. The top 10 Pablo Escobar facts. Which of these facts are you surprised to learn about? Kindly share your observations, thoughts, and suggestions in the comment section below. If this video was insightful, don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell button to be notified whenever we upload videos like this one. That's it for me, guys. Don't forget to stay classy and safe. I will see you in the next video.